Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And in the garage today I got a 2005 Ford F-150 5.4 liter, and one of the rear axle seals is leaking, so I'm going to go ahead and replace that seal along with the other side as well. And then while I'm in there, I'm going to replace both bearings as well, and then of course the differential gear oil. So since we're going to be jacking up the rear end here, I just went ahead and blocked the driver front tire. Alright, so go ahead and crawl underneath the vehicle here, grab a jack, and I'm going to jack up right underneath the differential here, and then I'll put a couple jack stands on each side of the axle, and then we'll get our jack out of the way. And then if I turn the camera here to the passenger side rear tire here, you can see, actually it's kind of hard to see because there's still a lot of wet snow on this truck here, but you can see all the oil residue, so that axle seal is leaking, and that's why we're going in here replacing this. Next, you can go ahead and remove both wheels and tires. And then your lug nut's going to be a 21 millimeter. So with your wheel and tire off, next we need to remove the brake caliper. And then you got two 10 millimeter bolts here that we need to remove. Next, go ahead and pull your caliper off and try to pry this. If you can't get that, go ahead from the top here, take a pry bar, just kind of pry up on that, and then it just lifts out of there, and then you can just kind of tuck this away on top of the leaf spring there. Just make sure it ain't gonna fall and dangle from this brake line here. Next, we'll go ahead and remove the rotor. If this doesn't just pull off, you may have to bang on it with the hammer right on the sides here to get it to loosen up, because it likes to rust right here. Or if that doesn't work, you may have to go behind and adjust your parking brake shoes. But this one just pulls right off. And as you can see, inside of the rotor is just soaked with oil from that seal leaking. And then as you can see, these parking brake shoes are just soaked in oil as well. So go ahead and clean them up. And then I'll show you, got the other side off here. You can see how dry this side is. So this side's not leaking, but we're gonna go ahead and replace the seal and bearing as well. Alright, so next we should be able to start pulling the back of the cover off on the differential here. This differential doesn't have a drain plug at all. But before you start pulling bolts on the back here, let's go ahead and make sure we can pull out our fill plug, because you never want to get into a position where you got everything pulled and then you can't pull your fill plug out to fill it back up with oil. So just take a 3/8 ratchet or a breaker bar, and let's go ahead and see if we can get this off. Alright, so we were able to get that off. So now, just kind of leave it like that, and we'll go ahead and start pulling the back bolts here. So now we can go ahead and pull off our differential cover here. This is the 9.75 rear end. Some of them came with that, others came with the 8.8. But you got a total of 12 13 millimeter bolts, so let's go ahead and pull those off. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull most of these out, and I'll leave the top two just kind of loose, holding it in. That way we can pry it out and let a lot of that oil drain down into our pan here. And then as you can see, I left two of these in up here, just kind of loose. So grab you a screwdriver, and then I'm going to try to pry this off. Just be careful, don't get in there too much to where you're scoring the differential there. As you can see, somebody's been in here before because there's a lot of RTV gasket on here. So like I said, just kind of try to get up under here if you can. And actually, let me go get a smaller screwdriver here. So just kind of like that. Like I said, pry it open a little bit here to let some of that oil get out of there so you don't make a huge mess. I'm going to go ahead and let some of that drain really quick, and then we'll take those top bolts out. Alright, so that's probably good. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of those 2 bolts out up there. Then go ahead and remove your cover. Alright, so what we need to do next is we need to pull out this pin, the center pin here, and that way we can release the C-clips here. But normally there's a bolt going through here to release this pin, so it looks like we're going to have to rotate this to see if it's on the other side there. And then what you want to do is just turn your key and put your transmission into neutral there. And I already got this one in neutral. That way you can rotate this. So let's go ahead and rotate it. You can see that's the bolt there I'm talking about. And let me go ahead and rotate this a little more. That way we can see our C-clips there. Probably about right there should work. And then I believe this is a 10 millimeter. So yeah, grab your 10 millimeter, get that on there, and see if we can get this loose. Alright, so I got that broken free. Let me go grab a socket wrench real quick here. Go ahead and pull that out of there. And then should be able to reach down below here and just stick your finger and try and pop that out of there. That just slides out of there like that. And so what we need to do now is there's a little C-clip that goes around the axle right here, and you can see it's tight right now. So what you want to do is go to your wheel there and just push in on the axle, and that should bring this in just a little bit here, just enough to get our C-clip off here. So I can just kind of reach here and see, just push in on the axle. And that should release this clip here. And if you have a magnet makes it help too. This doesn't want to slide off there. So just like that, That's what that looks like. And then you're going to do the same to the other side here. So like I said, same to this other side here, your passenger side. Go ahead and push in on the axle. And as you saw, that one just fell off of there. And of course it fell straight into my oil. But there's what that one looks like. So now with those C-clips released, we should be able to pull the axle out of here. Go ahead and grab it. Just pull straight out with it. And as you can see, this seal is just toast, and that's what's leaking here. So we'll go ahead and pull that. But first, let's go ahead and pull the other side off real quick too. So same thing, just go ahead and pull this one out. Alright, sorry about that, camera fell. And as you can see, this one's still dry around here, so this seal's good, but like I said, it has the same amount of miles and everything on that bearing and seal, so we'll go ahead and replace this while it's open. Alright, so next we'll go ahead and pull the bearing and seal. And to do this job, you'll want to get a slide hammer. You can rent some of these at the local auto parts stores. And then you'll also want to get bearing puller as well. And that just screws onto the slide hammer, and that way we can pop that old bearing out of there. Like I said, it just screws onto the end of the slide hammer here. And you can also rent these as well from the auto parts store. And you can see this is just a cheap one from Harbor Freight. Alright, and so what you want to do is, you can see we got 3 different sizes of bearing pullers. Pretty sure it's going to be this largest one here, 1 3/8 to 2 7/8. And what you want to do, just kind of unscrew this. It's probably good like that. And then you can see how this pivots and moves. So what I did was, this is one of the new bearings I'm going to be putting in. And the way this goes is, with your slide hammer, you slide this in, and then this is going to rotate kind of like that. And you can see how it kind of gets on the back side of the bearing there. And then you'll tighten this up, which will then tighten this like that. And then as you're pulling with the slide hammer, that's banging this out, pulling that bearing out of it. So go ahead and grab your slide hammer here. And we'll go ahead and screw this end in on. And you can just screw this on by hand. You don't have to get a wrench and everything out. Alright, so let's go to the truck there and try to pull that out. Alright, then make sure you got a drain pan or something to catch some of the oil, because there's probably going to be some oil coming out of here once we get that out of there. Just grab your slide hammer and go ahead and stick that in there. And you may have to move it around some to get that to lock in there. See how now I'm caught on that. So go ahead and screw this on, and we're just going to yank the seal with the bearing as well. Just makes it a lot easier. So go ahead and tighten this up. Once you get that tight, and then we'll go ahead and start slamming back and see if that pops out of there. Well, there goes the seal. Let's try it again here. Like I said, I was just trying to get both at once. All right, let's try this again. Just try it like that. There we go. And you can see that's just a spring for the seal there. Alright, so we should be good. I'll go ahead and clean that up, but let's go ahead and do the other side real quick. Alright, so same thing on this side. And this one's a lot harder to get out. Alright, so there's that one. Alright, so next we can go ahead and get our bearing ready to go. I just went with the National and the part number R1561TV, and then also the National seal as well, which is part number 100357. And I'll put a link in the description as well to Amazon, to where you guys can buy these. And what I like to do is I'll grab my gear oil, just going with the Walmart brand Super Tech, just as good seems like. And I just like to pour some of this in here in the new bearing. Just kind of coat that bearing with some of this. And then of course go ahead and spin it some, get that oil worked in there pretty well. Of course, when we fill the differential and everything, that gear oil lubes the bearing anyways, but I like to just add a little bit before I start tapping it in there. So once you get that bearing lubed up, I just got this seal driver kit, also a bearing driver as well. It's just a cheap one from Harbor Freight. But you'll take your handle here and pull that screw off. And this is one of the old bearings here. And what you want to do is just find the best size that will go around your bearing here, and that's not too big. So it looks like this 72mm one's probably going to be the best size. That way we can tap that new bearing in there. And then you'll just take it, grab your washer and your little screw there, and screw that in. And this is just a 1/2 inch. Go ahead and tighten that down. And now we should be ready to pound in that new bearing. Alright, so go ahead and get this all cleaned up here. And then grab your new bearing. And we'll set that in there. And then grab your driver. And let's go ahead and start hitting that in there. Once you get that hit in there, you'll hit a stopping point because there's welds in there that will stop that bearing from going in anymore. Just want to make sure it's in there all the way. So now let's go ahead and do our seal. And you can see this seal here, you can see that little white ring of silicone here. A lot of guys will put just a thin coat of RTV around this, but as you can see, this one kind of has it already, so I'm just going to try it without putting any silicone on there. And then you see I had switched to the bigger one here, the 81mm, and that way it can go directly on top of that seal. So kind of the same thing, just kind of get it somewhat started in there. Grab your driver and go ahead and tap it in. And you can see it kind of went in crooked, so I'm going to see if I can hit on this side a little bit here. There we go. And then just make sure you're nice and tight and even. And you're all the way in there, so we should be good. So now with our seal and bearing in, we can go ahead and stick our axle back in here. And then before you stick it in, kind of just want to inspect here, right in this area where the bearing rides. Look for any scarring or scoring or anything, but looks like we're still good on this side here. So let's go ahead and slide this in there. And then make sure you push that all the way in. You may have to turn it just a hair to get it going into the spider gears there. And then before I put the other passenger side axle in, let's go ahead and stick our C-clip back on here. So take your C-clip, so kind of get that pushed on there. And then if you can, just push that axle out with your fingers here to kind of hold that. So now that's sitting in place right there. Let's go ahead and stick the passenger rear in. Alright, and for this side, guys, the guy I'm doing this for, he's not going to want to replace these parking shoes, even though they should be, because they're, like I said, they're soaked in oil. But I cleaned them up as much as I can. I soaked them in brake cleaner and kind of soaked some of these parts. Tried to wipe up as much of the oil residue as I can, but maybe he'll get these replaced later on, and I'll do a video on that. But yeah, they definitely need to be replaced. But for now, if he doesn't use his parking brake that much, too often anyways, it's not going to hurt it. So let's go ahead and throw this axle in, and then I forgot to, I mentioned the wrong area when inspecting the axle on that last one here. But you want to check this area down here. I know I said it was the other end, but where the bearing rides on the axle here, just make sure there's not a bunch of scarring or scoring here. So this one looks all right. There's a little wear, but still good. So go ahead and stick this one in. As you guys are sticking this in, you may need to pry up a little bit to get it in there as well. And then you can see how that one kind of fits real loosely. So if you can, hold it and try to push that axle out with your fingers. And that's not working. So let me just kind of turn it upward, kind of like that there. Let me see if I can pull out that axle there, and hopefully that seats. Alright, so we should be good there on those. Both of those axles are in there. Now let's go ahead and take our rod here and just get it cleaned up really quick. So go ahead and grab your rod, and let's go ahead and stick that back down in there. Once you get that pushed in there, grab your bolt. And you're really supposed to buy a new one of these. I've reused them many times and haven't had any problems. Get that in there and started. Of course, it's kind of hard to see here. Get that so you guys can see a little better here. All right, once that's tight, so now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and scrape all this old gasket off of here, make sure this surface is all clean and everything. And then also I like to try to use my fingers and get out as much of this old oil as we can. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then like I said, I'll clean this up here. Alright, so I'm going to do the same with this to get this all cleaned up and wiped out, and then get all this old gasket off of here as well. I'll just use a razor blade and get some of this off of here. So I'll go ahead and get this cleaned up and come back. Alright, so as you can see, got this all cleaned up just using some brake cleaner and a razor blade. And then also, I forgot to mention earlier, you'll want to go ahead and torque this to 30 foot-pounds here, this pinion lock bolt here. Alright, so as you can see, got my cover all cleaned up here. Now would be a good time too if you guys wanted to say maybe scrape that rust all off and paint it, but the guy I'm doing this for, I'm sure he doesn't care. But with that clean, you can also buy a gasket for this. They do make a gasket for this as well, but I just like to use some gasket maker, and I'll be using the ultra black here. As you can see, I got a hole in the side here, of course. So I'm just gonna take some and start going all the way around here. You don't need too much because it'll start popping out of the sides when you go to tighten everything. I think the person that had this apart before, they actually used quite a bit, and because I really had to scrape off a lot. So let me go ahead and get this all spread around here really quick. Alright, so as you can see, got all my gasket maker spread out evenly along there. Not too much. So let's go ahead and stick this cover back on there. Just grab a few bolts and get those ready to put in. We'll go ahead and get a few of these bolts here started. And then also, you can see these tags are on here. So if you're not sure what axle you got, you can also look at these tags. You can see this one has the 975 there. And then the other thing too, on this other tag here, that'll tell you what oil you need to use as well. So as you can see, this is a 75 W140 synthetic oil only. Once you get those started, go ahead and tighten them up. Once you get all this tight, you can go ahead and grab your torque wrench and go ahead and torque those to 45 foot-pounds. Now go ahead and put both of your rotors on each side and your brake calipers. And as you can see, I just went ahead and cleaned that up as best as I could, all that oil that was soaked in there. And then also, like I said, I covered his pads in brake cleaner just to try to get them somewhat clean so they work. So go ahead and slide on your rotor there. And then I like to just spray that rotor clean as well. Go ahead and grab your brake caliper here. And then you just set your bottom ones in there on those tabs. And then go ahead and slide it on there. And then you got this clip here. So I'll pretty much, once you get it where it needs to be, right there, you can just kind of tap on this. Stuck on our caliper pin here, so watch those. Like that. And then go ahead and grab your 10mm bolts here, caliper pins. And then I just like to hit it again with some brake cleaner here. And I'll go ahead and do the other side real quick and come back. Alright, so I got that other side all put back together. Now, go ahead and put your wheel and tire back on. Then go ahead and grab your torque wrench and we'll torque the lug nuts to 120 foot-pounds. Alright, so all we got left to do is go ahead and fill the rear differential. I like to do it with the wheels and tires back on. That way the truck's sitting level like it should. And like I said before, this particular truck's calling for the 75-140 synthetic, and I just went with the SuperTech Walmart brand. It's usually the cheapest. And then also I got, since this is a limited slip differential, I went ahead and got this Trans-X limited slip oil additive that I'll be adding this whole container to as well. Pretty much what you want to do is pull your fill plug, and then it's kind of hard to get in here, but get your jug all cut and just tip it up here and start filling. And then you got to kind of squeeze it a little bit here, just try to get all that oil out of it. Alright, so as you can see, you want to go to where it starts flowing out, kind of like a steady stream, almost like that. That way you know it's pretty much sitting level with the fill plug here, and that's what you want to do. Just go ahead and grab any type of Allen wrench here, stick that in, just like that, pull it out, and you can see, got a rag here, you can see that we're right at the fill line, so we should be good. So go ahead and grab your fill plug, and you may just want to clean off, you can see all that, go ahead and clean that off. Go ahead and stick your plug back in. Grab your breaker bar or your 3/8 socket wrench. And let's go ahead and tighten that up. Once you get that tight, go ahead and clean up oil residue there. Alright, so as you saw, I pretty much used all three of these quarts. There's still a little bit at the bottom of these, just because you can't get it all the way out. And then I did use just a hair, which I probably didn't even need to use any of this. Just some extra stuff I had here. So I think you'll be safe with 3 quarts, as long as you get all the oil out. But this Valvoline jug just seemed like it was a lot easier to get it out for some reason. And then like I said, and then also add this 7 ounces of Trans-X limited slip oil additive as well. Alright, so that's going to do it for the video. Again, this was a 2005 Ford F-150, and I went ahead and replaced the rear oil seals along with the bearings as well, and then also changed the rear differential gear oil. And if you haven't already, check out some of my other videos, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.